Press the bell icon on the YouTube app to never miss a video from News Laundry.
Welcome to News Laundry Chhota Hafta. For the full episode, subscribe because it is behind the paywall and only subscribers get access to uncut, complete content. News Laundry Hafta is our weekly wrap of all that made the news, all that didn't, and all that should have and all that shouldn't have. We agree, we disagree, we critique, and occasionally we beat each other up. But it's all good fun. Subscribe.
This is a News Laundry podcast and you're listening to NL Hafta.
अंग्रेज अपना लगान और न्यूज़ लॉन्ड्री अपना हफ्ता कभी नहीं छोड़ते. Welcome to NL Hafta. I will start with plugging pay to keep news free because when the public pays, the public is served. When advertisers pay, advertisers are served. Please pay to keep news free. Subscribe to News Laundry. Go to newslaundry.com on the top right hand corner. Click subscribe and pay. We have a News Laundry Sena project as well, where you can contribute to the Sena. And the project we're working on is to find out who owns which news platform. We did this when we had just launched, but now there are a lot more news platforms and the ownership patterns are a lot more complicated. We have put a team aside to get to the bottom of that because who owns your news impacts what your news is. Also, please rate our podcast from whatever platform you listen to our podcast, because when you rate it and we get a higher rating, then more people discover us and then more people subscribe to us and we can do more stories and reports. And tell people about it. Word of mouth also helps. I'll tell you the email that you need to send your feedback to whenever we finish. But before that, let me introduce our guest today. We have Sushant Sareen joining us. Sushant.
Great to be here.
Is a columnist for many news organizations, including News Laundry. He is right now a senior fellow at the Observer Research Foundation. He's a writer and an author. He has previously been a senior fellow at the Vivekananda International Foundation and a consultant at the Institute for Defense Studies and Analysis. That's IDSA. And he used to run a news publication that used to get news from all over the subcontinent and just compress it into all the India-related stuff. And he's the author of the book, The Jihad Factory, Pakistan's Islamic Revolution in the Making. And he's also a man whose mouth is even filthier than mine. So, welcome, Sushant.
Wow.
Thanks.
He really doesn't know what to say.
Madhu, ab dekhna. You keep tokoing me, na? Now just see. See what is coming. Anyways, so...
Can I use colorful language?
Yeah.
Of course.
Madhu's banned it, but it slips out now and then. So first let's go over the headlines and we discuss what made the news and what didn't and why our podcast is the number one. What happened, Manisha,
Donald
in the
Trump
world of news?
made a lot of news in India. He was in a press conference with the Pakistan Prime Minister where he said that Modi has asked him to mediate. And he said that I can help out and I can solve this long issue for you if you want. I'm happy to help. This created a lot of furore in India. India put out a tweet denying this. We said that this is not a bilateral issue for us. A congressman also said that Trump has handled this really badly. TV channels went berserk. Liar Trump trended on Twitter. So it was a fun 2-day. The J&K governor urged militants that they shouldn't kill special police officers or personal security officers. They should kill the corrupt instead. It was... He said कि क्यों फिजूल PSOs को मार रहे हो जो तुम्हें लूटता है उनको मारो.
This reminds me of something someone had said long ago, but yeah.
This also created quite a lot of furore. I think Umar Abdullah tweeted that if something happens to us, it's the governor's fault if we get murdered. And then he apologized. He said, I just said this in a fit of anger. Karnataka government's finally fallen. Thank God.
Why, thank God?
I think because I really felt bad for all the journalists covering this because it just went on for so long.
Look at the priorities. Be damned with governance. Be damned with what's happening with two people and the politics.
It was so boring also.
And I can't even read it.
And it wasn't as though the government was doing anything anyways.
They weren't turning up.
It was a dysfunctional government
Yeah,
anyways.
the speaker, these guys weren't turning up in the assembly for voting. I think they started very late. The speaker got angry also and said that, what are you guys doing? Why is there no attendance? So anyway, that's gone. In the Payal Tadavi's suicide case today, her letter has been discovered. It's been printed all over newspapers, and she's very categorically said that her 3 doctors there were harassing her over her caste. They made casteist comments at her. They didn't allow her to work, and she complained about them, yet nothing happened, and she finally committed suicide. Lok Sabha has passed the RTI amendment bill.
As has the Rajya Sabha.
Yes, and there was division in the opposition. There were opposition parties that voted with the government in this. Not
26
surprising. Yeah.
of that.
And there are letter wars again. 49 celebrities, which included people like Anurag Kashyap, wrote to the PM expressing their concern on religious hate crimes and lynchings. And there's been a counter letter by 61 celebs, which includes Kangana Ranaut, Prasoon Joshi, who can be called celebs, but people like Vivek Agnihotri and...
I went through the list. In fact, we'll discuss that also
eminent
later.
personalities who've said कि ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. This is just selective and nonsense. There was a Sonbhadra massacre where 10 people died and 24 people have been arrested in that case. There were lots of visits. Priyanka Gandhi went and visited and she said, Rahul ji ने मुझे भेजा है. Rahul ji मेरे leader हैं. I think that made quite a lot of news. And Sheila Dikshit passed away.
At 81. And
yes,
conspicuous by his absence was Rahul Gandhi. If there was any final proof required that this man does not belong in politics, it was this, that one of the most visible leaders of your party who took a lot of shit for your family's sake. She went into battles which she was certainly going to lose just to protect the Gandhi family name. Dies, you don't even show up for the cremation.
He did not.
You don't belong in politics. I forget what opposition will think. Your own cadre will be so disheartened.
Yeah.
मतलब अर्थी पे कंधा देने तो आ जाओ. So I really think, I don't know why he's still in politics. But in fact, we'll get into a little more detail about Sheila Dikshit. Let's go over the rest of the headlines. There was the Bihar and the Assam flood. 170 dead, over 1 crore affected. This happens annually. And the kind of animals that are affected and the number of animals that are affected.
And NRC has also been pushed to August 31st because of this. The final list will be out August 31st
Earlier, the
now.
Supreme Court had said that you have to finish by the 31st of July, but now they've pushed it.
Yeah,
As
final
has
list will come
Income tax filing has also been pushed by a month for those of you lazy people who are still running and scuttling around. Chandrayaan 2 mission was launched successfully, and just today another maneuver has been successfully done in outer space. Today is also Vijay Divas, the day we won the Kargil war. So congratulations to our brave Faujis, many of whom are not treated very well. There was a very interesting story today of that guy who's managing traffic in Punjab. Then Boris Johnson has taken charge of the UK Prime Ministership, and as they say, the lunatics are running the asylum. Do you like Boris? I have a feeling you'll
love
say
him.
Anyone who everybody hates will say I love.
No, because look,
he's entertainment.
He's entertaining. He's entertaining. He's very witty. It's very funny whenever he talks, but please don't forget that he was a very good mayor of London, number one, very successful mayor. Number two, a lot of the stuff which he talks about, it might look to be very, very facetious, even frivolous, but actually it isn't. So, there is this, people from your ilk have this problem
Which
with
is
people... political correctness and all of that. So he's not politically correct. He tends to make certain gaffes, which in a very stuffy kind of a society is not accepted. But otherwise, I think he's a very bright guy. And let's see how it works out.
There's lots of stuff on the internet about him, on his funny moments. And the one I love the most is when he was going on the zip line in London, inaugurating the new zip line, and he got stuck in the middle. And he's hanging there, and people are jeering at him, making fun of him and everything, and he's also having a good laugh.
Yeah, but I don't think those are the reasons, at least I like or dislike him. It's purely he has
I don't
zero
like or
honesty
dislike
or
him at
integrity,
all.
like what he used to write earlier.
I think he's
when you see his
entertaining.
earlier journalism pieces on the EU and what his position now is. It's like Farage, he says, even Boris Johnson, he had said the policies, in fact, I think the Independent had listed them. He said the policies that EU has thrust upon us, now it emerges those are not EU policies, those are bloody Britain's policies. Those are the complete dishonesty with which they peddle their agenda is my problem, not political correctness.
And he seems to be completely wild.
And he's gotten away because of Oxford Eton Thappa.
No, he had this raving fight with his girlfriend where they were throwing plates and china and all that, and Vaz's neighbors called the police complaining. That's pretty wild.
Then Robert Mueller said...
That's what makes him so interesting, isn't it?
2016 election, he did not exonerate Trump. That was a very interesting hearing, actually.
But he didn't incriminate him either.
How he walked the line. Then the Kerala High Court judge praises Brahmins, say they should always be at the helm of affairs because they are the twice born. So I found that interesting, that judges from tears. In fact, yesterday the Chief Minister of Uttarakhand, आपके Chief Minister Manisha Pande ji, Trivendra Singh Rawat says cows exhale oxygen.
And you can cure tuberculosis also by living next to them.
So,
पहाड़
yeah.
में बहुत tuberculosis problem
But he
है.
hasn't heard about what the cows do to the ozone layer.
Yeah, I don't know. Then Pranab Mukherjee says the $5 trillion economy isn't coming out of heaven. Anyway, Pranab Mukherjee did his utmost during his stint as the finance minister. I don't know how quickly people forget what
I'd
they
like
did.
to ask Sushant's opinion on this, the economy and the unemployment and where his government is going.
And finally, there was this entire bunch of letters and counter letters which we are also going to discuss. But let's start off with, I would just like to rant a little about the RTI. I don't know if anybody else has any rant on it. I found it from a point of view of media coverage disgraceful that when something as powerful as the RTI was being made, for those of you who are wondering what the amendments are, the government has put out this pamphlet which other people are sharing that there is no amendment to the Act. Basically, the appointment of information commissioners earlier was not completely under the central government the way it is right now. Right from how much they'll be paid to when they can be removed. There were certain fixed terms. It was almost the process of removing an information commissioner was as much as it is to remove an election commissioner. So it's, in a sense, all information commissioners now can be handpicked by the central government and they will have to toe the line. Otherwise, they can be removed just as easily as others. So I think that's a really sad thing. I think the RTI was one of the only good things to have come out of, policy and parliament in a very long time that actually directly impacted citizens across the board. So enough about the politicians and people like BJD, CJD who paltoed, which I'm not surprised. Even when there was an attempt to amend it back in 2005 or 6. That time, I think the Rajasthan governor was Bharat Singh Shekhawat, a former BJP man, who he and Mr. Sibbal were speaking the same language. He wanted to shut down Aruna Roy's Tilonia and all the RTI thing from the BJP. The Congress was doing the same line. But of course, as soon as it comes to your information, I read an interesting piece saying that the one reason they've done this is just so that the PM's degree RTI can be done away with once and for all, because how embarrassing would it be that I've been lying about my degree all this while. So that's why they don't want it to come out. But I think what was sadder was that night, the kind of coverage that was being done other than India Today channel had one hour discussion on it, NDTV had a discussion on it, but pretty much all the other channels were just discussing WhatsApp pe inhone ye bheja, wo bheja, ye bheja. So from a news point of view, I think this was a story that was just wasted. I mean, no one served the public purpose other than a few. Do you think it's that important an issue or not?
I don't watch television.
You just appear on it.
Yeah, because I get paid for it.
No, this I feel that the government, the two things. The government was foolish by bringing it so, because RTI is more or less dead. If you see all the cases from CIC, whichever case went to the judiciary, so all the cases have been managed by through the judiciary.
And pending,
all cases, all were
and the pendency is also going as high as cases.
No, the CIC, if they give a positive, decision in your favor, the government goes to the judiciary and it goes against you. So all cases, I mean, it's 99%. That is the rate. So the government was foolish by bringing, the entire attention on this issue.
It is unnecessary.
The second is, the government is not so foolish because they need to rein in people who are going to come, as CIC or as information commissioner. So unko, they just want to control those guys. So by bringing this in, ki boss, we are going to control you. So watch, whenever you join, as information officer, you will have to be, you have to work under us.
Hame salam thokoge.
Hame salam thokoge.
Ladies, you have any view on this?
I think these issues really unite all the parties.
Yeah.
Because none of them want RTI to work. And so in that sense, there was barely any opposition or debate. And the 3 sections, I think, which they're adding amendments to, is section 13, 27, really will change the structure of...
This is the main amendment.
Yeah, how they will function. And I think that's extremely damaging.
Controlling their appointment and their salaries. That is the main.
That's the main
and
thing.
then and where they'll be placed, location. So And the sad part is that just like what happened when Section 66A was passed, the public is a mute spectator to all the things that damage them. And we can't do anything except create a noise, which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. Most of the time it doesn't.
Now I want to come to the other very interesting point, and I've loved Sushant's take on this, which was on what Trump said.
Yes.
Now,
first you must tell us what Trump said.
What Trump said was that he was sitting with Imran Khan, who looks a little like Michael Jackson. I don't know what he's doing to his face, but he doesn't look like a real person anymore. I don't know.
He looks weird.
It looks
he looks
strange.
like
Neeta
decadent.
Ambani.
His face has just gone to pot.
It's kind of strange. But he was sitting with Mr. Trump, and Trump said that, Modi had asked me to mediate on Kashmir. So
I'd be very happy.
Now Imran Khan, for those of you listening, has gone back to a hero's welcome in Pakistan, and he said, I feel like I won the World Cup. I guess because he got Trump to say whatever he did. I don't think Trump had thought this through. You'd think Trump has thought this through. I think this is something I think वो पेल देता है और अब बात बोल दी तो बोल दी.
Look, there are two or three.
But sorry, you think that India's response should be a lot firmer on this? Why?
See, I believe that India's response should have been a lot firmer, because this is the time where you tell and you convince the world that, this is one red line which nobody can cross, no matter what, right? And the kind of anodyne statements, the Ministry of External Affairs issues, they can, I've written about it, they are coma-inducing, right? Anything which the Ministry of External Affairs normally issues, what they say in the UN nowadays is like pulse racing. The kind of expressions which they use, mothership of terrorism and stuff like that. But normally what the kind of statements they issue, they put anybody to sleep. So I'm of the view that the Prime Minister, because he has been named, should have come, and he doesn't need to, enter into a slanging match, but needs to come and say that, we never had this conversation, and what we had conversation, maybe clarify. Because I find it inconceivable that somebody like Modi, given his ideological, persuasions,
background,
and his care with words.
And the fact that, he has enough diplomatic and political experience to know what he can push and what he can't, what he needs to say and what he doesn't, for him to make this kind of a proposition, and that also to somebody as garrulous as Trump, right? So I don't think that's credible. So one is, of course, that when they were speaking, because this meeting happened just a few weeks after this whole fracas on Balakot, and that was a near war situation. So perhaps that did come up, and maybe, Modi would have plugged the line of terrorism being exported from Pakistan, and that the US needs to do more, on this whole thing, what is happening in Kashmir. They need to lean on the Pakistanis. Now, whether one should have gone down that road or not is debatable, but that's another matter. And Trump kind of assumed that, we are asking for him to step into this whole thing and seeking his mediation. Because in that same press talk, sitting with Imran Khan, who incidentally has spiritual ministrations for his looks, and if you read his ex-wife's book, there's
he puts dal on his body, no?
All sorts of other things. I don't think
urad ki dal.
I thought you've prevented us from saying certain things on this podcast. So I don't think we can go into details of his kinkiness. But the point is that what Trump said, he contradicted himself, because first he said he's asked me to mediate or arbitrate. Then he goes on to say, then I'll speak to him and I'll see what he says. Now, if Modi has said that please go ahead, then he should have announced that.
But I think...
So one is that. The other is that maybe, given the kind of craziness which the Pakistanis have, that you mention the word Kashmir, regardless of what context Kashmir is mentioned. If Kashmir is mentioned, it means Pakistan has won, right? So, Trump must have thought, okay, fine, let me bait this guy. Let me tell him that, okay, fine, I'm interested. I'm ready to do something on Kashmir, which incidentally, it has been a kind of an American position.
But you think Trump is smart enough? You think Trump is smart enough for that?
Sides. Listen, if he's a billionaire, even if a lot of his wealth is inherited, he can't be nobody's fool, right?
Who?
Trump.
He's not a billionaire. His wealth is questioned many times. He's gone
we don't know
bankrupt
that,
3
correct. We
times.
don't know if he's a
Bankrupt, he's been.
Yeah,
3
so
times.
the bank saved him for whatever reason. So, and I disagree with you on 2 points. One, you're giving him far too much credit for intelligence by saying that he thought he's doing a bait. I think he thinks he says things without thinking. That's one thing. This is a man, you have to take his statements with a pinch of salt, because this is the man who went to Israel and he's sitting with Israeli officials and he says, I've just come from the Middle East. And the American ambassador to Israel is like hiding his face and doesn't know what to say because, bugger, you are in the Middle East. That's one. So I think everyone takes a
So
statement.
this terminological inexactitude.
Yeah, that's
with
one
him.
thing. Secondly, I think he's a free-flowing mind that says anything. He says, though brown people are fighting, so he presumes that American play a role. He doesn't realize that India's position has been radically against any mediation. So that's one thing. Secondly, I think that the Ministry of External Affairs, I disagree with you on that. I think they did the correct thing, because by just saying that this conversation never happened and Modi not getting personally involved, because Trump is a very petty personal guy. So if you get into a slanging match with him, say if Modi denied officially from himself, said that I did not say this, there would be a Twitter war. So what the Ministry of External Affairs, knowing what kind of man he is, they issued the statement that none of this was brought up, none of this was discussed. Modi never said it. And that, I think, is enough, because it leaves the door open to further discussions with America without getting personal with Trump and making it personal between Modi and Trump. They depersonalized it, which I think was a clever thing to do.
I think why Modi can get away with it right now is, although the next day, the economic advisor to Trump, in a press conference, because, a lot of media reported that Trump just made this up. Modi did not say any such thing. He said to a question that was asked to him, and that was played several times on CNN, that what Mr. Trump said, that Mr. Modi asked him to mediate, is the Indian media's claim he just made it up. So he turned to that reporter and said, that is a very rude question to ask. The president does not make up things. If he said it happened, it happened. The rest is not my brief. I'm an economic advisor. You can ask whatever Bolton.
Look here.
So they double down on it. The only why Modi can get away with it is because there's no opposition, a credible opposition who can question and hold his feet to the fire कि भाई हमारे Prime Minister को देहाती औरत बोला था Nawaz Sharif ने. And they've discredited Manmohan completely with that. There's no one to do it, so he can chill. But I agree that if you take on Trump directly, he will take the debate to a level where you can't go. Couple of announcements before we move forward with the Hafta. And then, as you know, the Media Rumble is coming to town again. The Mela rolls in to the India Habitat Centre on the 2nd and 3rd of August. We have speakers such as Prakash Raj, Shekhar Gupta, the one and only Gulzar, Jaggi from Swaraj, Prasanna from Swaraj, that's Nidhi Razdan, Vani Tripathi, who is on the what we incorrectly call the censor board, but the board for certification and other such stuff. We have Swara Bhaskar, we have Milind Khandekar, the former head of ABP News, who's now doing language for BBC and he's heading that department. We have Vivian Schiller coming from the US. She has started something called Civil Media and she was former head of National Public Radio. She has an amazing career and lots to say, and we have lots to learn from her. We have Maziar Bahari, the Iranian-Canadian journalist on whom a film has been made. We also have film screenings. 5 different film screenings. So all this, imagine, you can just get for $500 if you come for 1 day or $800 if you come for 2. Much better than spending that kind of money on a trashy film, no? So do come here. You can register at themediarumble.com. I repeat, register at themediarumble.com. Our detailed 2-day schedule is also there. You can see who's speaking to who on what day, what the panels are all about. And if you're a News Laundry subscriber, you get free entry, man. So yeah, one more reason to subscribe. If you're wondering what films we'll be screening Rosewater, and that'll be followed by a conversation with Maziar Bahari, on whose life that film has been made. We'll be screening The Clinton Affair, that showed how unfairly the Clinton Affair was covered. We'll be screening Nobody Speak, which is on Netflix, but it's much more fun when you watch it with journalists. And we'll be screening Free Meek, a look at a great injustice on how man's color determined how justice worked. And we'll be screening a film that is yet unreleased in India, and it has been voiced by Leonardo DiCaprio. All right, now let me just speak about Sheila Dikshit having gone. I mean, I will be the first one to say, and you know, everyone can come in, although we've spoken a little bit about this earlier. I think she was a very graceful lady. She was very gracious. She was very polite. This is something, actually, she was the anti-Congress in that sense, because when I used to be a reporter, and I've said this earlier on Hafta, I remember Jagmohan contested against who in 97, 99 when he won? Against Rajesh Khanna?
Rajesh Khanna. By one vote, I think he...
I don't know. He won, no, but I remember he won. So we had all the reporters.
Or Rajesh Khanna won by one vote.
The election I'm talking about, Jagmohan won. So all of us had, and those were ballot counting hoti thi. I remember us reporters had one, no matter what our ideological thing was, we liked to go to interview a Sushma Swaraj or a Jagmohan. Because when you went to their house, it was a very middle class house. They'd say, "Aao andar beta, andar hai, wo abhi aate hain interview mein." You know, Jagmohan's wife would come, or Sushma Swaraj, you know, they'd come and give you laddu or matri and chai. And you'd sit. But if you went to interview, let's say, Sibbal or Chidambaram, you wait outside like a peon. And when Saab will come and give you a bite. So that was very clear. I think Sheila Dikshit is one of the few Congress leaders who had that kind of relationship. So that's why she was very popular with journalists. Because on that, she had that auntie-like this thing. But I think this whole thing that, oh, she was so cooperative while working. Dude, she had the Congress in the center. I mean, you can say that she managed to get stuff done. Okay. I remember one second, I'll just finish and then the floor is yours, Joy. I remember when the whole thing happened, law and security in Delhi, she said, "I'm so helpless." Asked the center, "Dude, it's your party. You and Sonia are supposed to be thick as thieves." And she was dealing with an Atal. Let's see you deal with the Modi. You know, so this whole thing, I think, is a little overdone. I mean, the amount of corruption, and those were my days as an RT activist. The amount of corruption we found, from the sidewalks that were built to the fly ash bricks scams that were happening, just the Commonwealth Games scam was the big one. The level of corruption at every level of governance in Delhi during her tenure, I think, is being whitewashed.
CWG
just
was
because let's make Arvind Kejriwal look like a ladaku.
No, listen, it's not just about Arvind Kejriwal. So you're talking about Sheila Dikshit. She had the Congress government backing her up in the center. And earlier, she had Atal.
Atal, yeah.
Not for a very long period, because the government was voted out within 6 months. The point is not that. The point is that, you remember there was a chief minister before Sheila Dikshit, a man by the name of Madhu Trehan,
yes,
who, despite having a BJP government, was an obstructionist on everything, right? So it's the quality of a politician, how to get work done. It does not matter whether it's your party or some other party. That is one part of it. The second part of it is that you cannot be the chief minister of a state dependent on a state like Delhi, for example, dependent on the central government, where you are using the most abusive language against the prime minister, and then expect that everything you want to get done will get done. Listen, politics is the art of the possible. You have to find ways to get work done. Yes, there was corruption. I agree with you that there was a lot of stories about corruption.
And the level was...
And it was astounding.
Also, no? Her son
and the Congress party got punished for it. But despite that corruption, let's talk about a state like, or a city like Bangalore, right? Which is one of the cities India projects to the rest of the world.
Now
right? It's totally screwed up, right? Isn't there corruption out there? But work doesn't happen. In Delhi, while there was, and I'm not condoning corruption even for a minute, what I'm trying to say is that at least a lot of work did happen. And that is something which is undeniable, whether it was infrastructure, whether it was the power situation. Yes, there were other scams which were in the offing, which were scotched. For example, on water supply. You remember that?
Yeah.
Right? So those are things which were squashed. But she had ideas, she would implement them, she was a good administrator, and she was a decent person.
Now I'll talk about what Mr. Malik said, the J&K governor. He, while making a speech, he got very excited.
Boris Johnson again.
And he says, yeah, he looks a bit like Boris Johnson, like Satyapal Malik. Can you think about it? If Boris Johnson got a tan and ate a little more, he'd look a lot like Satyapal Malik. Says, लड़के जो बंदूक लिए हुए हैं, फिजूल निहत्थे लोगों को मार रहे हैं, PSOs को मारते हैं, SPOs को मारते हैं. भाई, क्यों मार रहे हो इनको? उन्हें मारो जिन्होंने तुम्हारा मुल्क लूटा है, जिन्होंने तुम्हारी कश्मीर की सारी दौलत लूटी है. इनमें से भी कोई मारा आपने अभी तक. And that led to, Omar Abdullah, because before that he was talking about political families having looted Kashmir. So it kind of, he said it's a dog whistle that you're telling him to kill us. So of course, as a governor, I think this gentleman who actually lives in my colony, or used to before he became governor, I think it's really foolhardy and bizarre thing to say.
This is very stupid, actually.
But
Just
you know,
encouraging anarchy.
but Sushant, this reminds me of one of your friends back when you used to run your publication and used to have those bunch of friends who were lawyers and some of them were IAS. I remember one of them had said, we were talking about how the brazenness of corruption is so much today. And I was like, it was never so brazen. He said, who was the last big leader who was assassinated? So I was like, I don't know. I said, Beyant Singh, maybe, Punjab, the bomb blast. I think he was the big leader to be assassinated. He says, as long as there were terrorists who were taking on big leaders, no big leader wanted to be in the headlines. No one wanted to be Amar Singh. कि देखो page 3 पे भी है, देखो front page पे भी है. क्योंकि यार terrorist की नजर में नहीं आना, अपना पीछे बनाते जाओ. Don't become too brazen. But once there was no fear, then everybody became brazenly corrupt. So the theory,
What nonsense.
He propounded was that at one level, terrorists prevent brazen corruption. So I sat back and I was very young. I was in my early 20s. I was like, and this guy was much older. I think he was like 8-10 years older than me. So that doesn't make sense, but it also makes sense. I don't know. So I think Satyapal Malik has been spending a lot of time with that gentleman because the logic is the same.
Look, number one, this is a colloquial way of saying things. That, and very often, not in this particular context, but a number of other things, that when somebody is on the streets agitating about something and you say that, why the hell are you agitating about this? Why don't you agitate about something else? Why are you targeting these people? These are not the guys responsible. The guys responsible are somebody else. So that's the colloquial way of, dealing with it. And perhaps the governor said certain things which from his perch he should not have said, right?
Because of his
it's
position.
politically incorrect. But I'm just wondering why people like Umar Abdullah and Farooq Abdullah and the rest of them, who've actually really enjoyed the fruits of being in power, are reacting the way they have. Because the guys, most of the other people have kind of kept quiet. It's not that every politician has jumped up and,
Did Mehbooba say anything to this? Did she respond to this?
I don't think so.
Mehbooba would have said something weird because that's what she does these days. But that's not the point. So my point is that this was a colloquial way of putting things, and he should not maybe have said it. But the fact of the matter is, I think he was trying to connect with them that, listen, why are you killing these poor policemen who go home after doing their duty, who are just doing their jobs, and you go and target these guys brutally. You have killed so many of these fellows, and that rather than doing that, you should be targeting people who have actually robbed
Which is
the
also
state.
actually, you tell me if it's a new thing, because this is something I remember when I was speaking to journalists on my podcast. They said, you notice, and I'm talking about the youth. Most of our anger is against the army. It's not against the police, because the police are our own. Because the way the police behaves with us also is not how the army behaves with us. And the way, because he says today he's doing a lathi charge, and the evening the guy who was in the mob is probably his neighbor's son. Because the cops are from there, but the army is not from there. There'll be some from Tamil Nadu, there'll be some Rajrif, there'll be from, Marathas. So is this targeting police officers in Kashmir a new phenomenon?
No.
No, it's not. It's not a new phenomenon, but I
They are
don't quite
mukhbis.
agree. I've heard something completely different. That they don't have so much of a grouse against the army as much as they do against the police, because it's the police ultimately which is responsible for law and order and is on the actually when it comes to disturbances and others. It's not the army which is either firing pellet guns or firing tear gas
So
or
CRPF
doing lathi
But most of the
charge.
cases that new organizations in Kashmir take right out of the Supreme Court, like the Conan Pushpura case, all that, they are all army related. None of the police related cases
So
they
how
take.
many of them?
Yeah, I think
And then what happens is, look, Kashmir is a dirty war, right? And what is happening is that very often it is so much easier to, because of the whole politics around and the insurgency out there, that you have to target the army. So you will take up cudgels against the army and try and drag them into court. The army has its own very, very strong and robust disciplinary mechanisms. But very often what happens is that, just because somebody has filed a complaint does not necessarily mean that the complaint is valid. or has any truth to it. So it works both ways. And in many cases, the army has cracked down. Many officers have lost their jobs. Many of them have been put in prison. Many
Some have
of
lost
them,
seniority, like Mr. Gogoi, Colonel, Major,
yes,
whatever he is now.
So those things do happen. But the army has its own way of deciding the proportionality of punishment depending on what the infraction
So you were
is.
saying
No,
something?
if even if it is colloquial, a governor cannot say utter such words.
Yeah,
A.
sure.
And
It's
B,
politically incorrect, yes.
the most of the PSOs who are getting killed, I think they get killed because the terrorists suspect that they are the mukhbirs. They are the ones who are passing on the information. So most of them have got killed because of this.
सुन लिया अफ्रीका मुफत खोरों. Not to brag or anything, but News Laundry Hafta features in the top 50 in the world on SoundCloud in the news and politics category for podcasts. So do subscribe and see what you're missing, because when the public pays, the public is served. When advertisers pay, advertisers are served. Subscribe, help keep news independent and free.
All News Laundry podcasts are available on iTunes and Stitcher and any other podcast platform.